Hello everybody, this is Lucy and my blog is Paper Glitter Glue, and I like to do all sorts of paper crafts. This one is, these two little houses are fairy houses with violets on the roof, but the technique I'm going to talk about today is making this wood grain texture. So let's get started. First I made it with the Deboss tool on the Cricut Maker. You can't use this tool on the Cricut Explorer, but it works on the Cricut Maker, and it debosses. It makes an indentation on the paper or you know, the material you're using, and just is perfect for wood grain. So next, after I figured this out, I was experimenting to see if it would work, so I drew some wood grain patterns, and I'll show you. This is a simple pattern that I drew, and I ran it through my Cricut with a pen just to show you the structure of the wood grain. That's the simple pattern, but the one I really like is this one. It's a more complicated pattern, and that's what I used on both of these houses. Let me see. I'm not sure how well you can see it when I put it under the camera. I'll try to tilt it a little bit, but there's the wood grain pattern. This is 65-pound cardstock, and it does a nice impression on that one. And this one is done on 110-pound cardstock, and then I painted a little bit on it to bring the grain out, to make it more prominent. And it was a little bit difficult to paint on a whole big piece, so what I've done is I've cut out the house pattern on the paper before I paint it, and I'm going to show you how that works. And then just to show you something else, and again, I'm not sure how well this will show up, but this is the kind of cardboard I usually use for my houses, and I wondered if it would work directly on this cardboard. One side has a white, almost shiny surface to it, and the other is just regular cardboard. And it didn't work really well. It kind of drug and tore the paper some, this surface, so I wouldn't recommend using it on cardboard with a treated surface, with an extra layer on it, shiny layer. Okay, so next, let me show you this is a strong grip mat. You can use a standard grip mat or a strong grip. Mostly I have strong grip mats because most often I worked with cardboard, which needs a strong surface. So make sure when you do the embossing, make sure that your paper is well adhered to your mat. So I always tape it with painter's tape, and just to make sure. And then when you cut it, it needs to be well adhered to. So what I would do is emboss it, which actually pushes it down firmly against the mat, and then I would cut it without taking the paper off and then putting it back on. So these are some pieces. This is brown cardstock, a dark brown cardstock, 110 pound. This is just thin, 65 pound, and I think this is 65 pound. I thought I would play around with the green too. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit on how to paint with it, how to paint to make the grain come out. So actually I'm going to start with a lighter color. I haven't done a green one, but I thought it might look good. So this is the back piece of the little fairy house. There's always a hole that if you want to add light, you can put a little light string, like a bulb, to go through there. I also generally make a cardboard base where you can put a light string underneath too. So you kind of have an option for lighting your little houses in my patterns. And you can get all these patterns, including the wood grain pattern, on my blog, Paper Glitter Glue, and just subscribe to the newsletter, and you can get all my patterns for free. Alrighty, so let's see. I haven't done the green. Like I said, I haven't done the green. So one thing I found was I used kind of a old, you know, you could tell this is one of my favorite brushes because it's just crusted with paint. but I use kind of a scraggly brushes where the bristles are sort of splayed out, because that way I can make sure that I can try not to apply too much paint, which I've already done. Let's see if we can make it a little better. That's a little better. It's not staying on the surface as much as I would like. I'm trying to preserve the grain. I think part of it is that this is 65-pound cardstock, and when I chose the material, it I don't think it pushed as hard. But still, you get an idea. You can still see some of the grain. It's not as prominent as I would like. Okay, let's see if we can do this one. You really need a dry brush with not much paint on it, because all you're trying to do is hit the highlights. You're not trying to cover the entire paper. You're just trying to get the upper layer. See, I did it better on that one. And I didn't have much paint on it. Still, they both work. Okay, and I like the green. I like the green on green. Okay. Let's make sure we got a really dry brush. Yep. My fingers are always covered with paint and, you know, scratches. I like to garden and pull weeds, and I have an aggravating cat, Bill, and he scratches me. So my hands are not the you know, they're not Instagram worthy, but they work for painting. And this kind of a technique, the more you play around with it, the better you get at it. So this is like the third or fourth house I've made. And I'm pulling the brush kind of, it's parallel to the paper, but also I'm kind of going against the grain. The grain direction's that way. And then I'll do some this way too, but I'll try to do it real light. See, once I know my brush is very, very dry. Whoops. See, it's kind of making the grain come to life. So that's the green one. And I set aside a brush so we can try the brown. I still think that looks good, both of them, even though that one had too much paint. You see how you see the grain more on this one, but still you've got you have a suggestion of the grain on this, on the back piece of the little house. Okay, so let's start with the back piece again on the brown cardstock, and this is a thicker cardstock, so it may actually work a little better because I think the grain is deeper. And that's what I used for the blue house. Okay. Not much paint on it. Again, another scraggly brush. I really didn't put much paint on it. I know you're not supposed to dip into the paint, but that's the way I do. Because I don't want to waste it. So when I pour it into a container, a lot of times I don't use it all. think I'm being too stingy with the paint. But, you know, I think this is what makes paper crafts fun. Playing around, experimenting. There. Every house looks different. And it's play. We all need that now. Yeah, I like this. Ah, shoot. That won't matter when I glue it down. It'll dry, and then I can actually put it under a book or something to make it flat. Okay. So even with more paint, we're doing okay. So this is the more complex design that I showed you. And I think it looks good. And again, I like the tone on tone. I've experimented with using several different colors, and that's what I did on the purple fairy house, or the fairy house with the purple leaves. This is watercolor paper, and I did like 3 layers, and it looks good, but I actually like the tone on tone better. I think using cardstock and then gluing that to the surface of the house, I think that works better. So I just wanted to show you this technique because I think it's a great surface technique for your paper crafts. And it uses, again, it's the Deboss tool. I don't know how you say it. Deboss tool for the Cricut Maker. Only works on the Maker. And so you apply your paper firmly to your mat, and then cut out the sections of the house, and then you apply it to your actual cardboard structure. And it makes a very sturdy little house with just great texture. So that is how you do the wood grain texture with your Cricut Maker, the Deboss tool, or the Deboss tip. Oh, and this tip comes with a quick change, a quick swap housing, so you only need one housing. You can just buy the tip by itself. It's a little bit less expensive, but I think it's a great tool for this technique. So anyway, that's it, and you can get the wood grain pattern on my blog, Paper Glitter Glue, and in a day or so I'll have the actual fairy house pattern along with all the little violets on the roof too. Okay. Y'all, I hope you're doing well and staying safe and healthy and doing something creative to have fun. Y'all take care. Bye.